Alright, this is the overview of the G0704 mill and how it's wired and everything. We'll just go over the ports and pins really fast. You go up to config and ports and pins, and we'll have a look at the motor outputs. You can see the x-axis is step pin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That means we're going to come down here, and you can see, if you look really closely above these rails, they're all labeled. This is pin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and they come on out and send the signals from your DB25 cable out to your stepper drives. This is your X and your Y drives. They're powered by this 48 volt power supply, and then your your Z drive is powered by 110 volt AC drive. This is the AC power going in. So your step and direction signals come into here, here, and here. And the output to your stepper motors comes out here, here, and here. This is AC power on the AC drive, and then DC 48 volts in is here and here on these drives. And we'll run over here to the spindle. The spindle is controlled by a 0 to 10 volt signal off of these two pins. The 0 to 10 volt signal comes over here, and this is the ground right here, this black wire. This is the 10 volt, 0 to 10 volt signal. Depends on what your requested RPM is. This is AC power in to the board, and then your output to the motor comes from this wire here and this wire here. Those wires come over to a double pull, double throw reversing relay. This relay reverses your spindle when you're doing something like tapping. So it actually goes from the onboard relay to a 12 volt power supply to this relay, and then back to the onboard relay. It's a circuit because this relay requires 12 volts to actuate, and thus we go to the 12 volt power supply down here. But this board only puts out 5 volts, so we have to use two relays, or a relay to actuate the second relay. This relay here is your coolant relay, and this part up here is actually very important. The coolant relay goes to the top outlet right here, so you only want to plug your coolant into the top outlet. This is an AC outlet. And this is why it's important, is because your lower outlet is a DC outlet. Your spindle motor up there runs on DC power, so don't ever plug anything into the lower outlet other than your spindle. That'll mess things up. It is a DC outlet only. Your X, Y, and Z drives are all labeled. And then lastly, the fourth port is an index port, and we'll come up here. This is your indexer right here. There's a magnet inside there, right in here, that passes over a Hall effect sensor, and it lets it know how many RPMs the spindle is going. We just input the ratio between the drive and the driven side, and then Mach 3 can automatically calculate the ratio. So we'll go over here and we'll click, take it out of reset, we'll click spindle start. You can see we requested 500 RPMs. We'll turn it off and we'll do it again. You can see it takes it just a second to hunt around and find that 500 RPMs. It happens very quickly. But you can go down here and you can type in 600, then click enter, and it'll accept it, and it'll try to settle as best it can on 600 RPMs. Spindle off is here, and this is another important feature. You have two gears, and you have to, if you change the gears on the machine, you have to tell Mach 3 that you changed gears. So we'll come back over here, and you can see that this is gear 1 is low gear, gear 2 is high gear. In Mach 3 we just call this spindle pulley 1, spindle pulley 2. So if you switch over to high gear, you have to come over here to Mach 3 and you have to tell it. You have to go to config spindle pulleys, pulley number 2, and you select it because your max speed on that pulley is 2,500 RPMs, and like I said, you have to input the ratio between the drive and the driven, so Mach 3 will calculate how fast it is actually going. So we'll select OK. This never changes. You just tell it which pulley it's in, and you'll be good. So we'll do spindle start again. And again, this is in gear 2. We can really juice it up here to 2,000. Click OK, or click enter. And you can see right there it'll hover around 2,000 RPMs. And we can either click this button or click F5 to turn the spindle off. For your X, Y, and Z drives, this is X left and right, Y kind of forward and backward, and then down and up on Z. So we'll just do that. We'll do page down. Z comes down. Z goes up with page up. Then we'll use our forward backward arrow keys to control the Y, and then we'll look at X here. Back and forth, no problem. And then you can see we've set up, like I was saying, we've set up your pump to your spout here. That's coming down here to the coolant inlet, which is controlled by this relay right here, which is run off of pin 16. So we're going to come up here and we're just going to click flood coolant on. You can either click it on like that, and there it'll go. We'll click it off, click it on. All right, so you can either control that directly from the Mach 3 screen, or you can input it into your G-code. Most cam software, including Sheet Cam, will have an option to turn it on and off automatically, so that'll be no problem. So again, we'll just quickly go over the ports and pins. Motor outputs, so your X-axis, they're all enabled. They're pin 2, 3 on X, 4, 5 on Y, 6, 7 on Z. Spindle is always pin 1 on step only. There's nothing on direction. And then it is low active, and they are all port 1 because port 1 means you have only one DB25 port ready to go. This side of the board over here is set up for extra inputs if you want to put on limit switches or probes or something. And then you have a few pins over here remaining for outputs if you want to actuate, say, an air cylinder or something like that. And then that is your spindle fuse. In case you overamp the spindle, that fuse will blow, saving your board. And then we'll just quickly jog on over to MDI. That's manual data entry, and we'll click M3S700. That means spindle forward at 700 RPMs. And then we hit enter. And now we just want to check that it reverses. When we type in the next line of code, it should throw this relay and the spindle should reverse. So we're going to go M4S700. Click enter. And there we go. It's just reversed. You can see the green light and the relay is active. So we're good. We'll turn the spindle off. We'll go back to the program run screen. So that is kind of your overview here of how that works. And then the most important thing here is if you ever lose these settings, you will need a backup XML file, and that is found under My Computer, Local Disk C, Mach 3, and then XML backups. You click on this, you click on the most recent backup, which is this one right here, and we're going to drag that out right over to the desktop. And then you have to right click on it, rename, and you want to change that to .xml, and then click enter. And actually I would also change the I would also change the name of this here just so you know there's a difference. G0704.xml. Alright, so now this file here contains all your ports and pins and settings and steps per inch and inputs and outputs and everything right in this file. So back this file up, put it onto a CD or a jump drive or something where you won't lose it, in case you ever have to set this back up again. So if you ever do have to set it up again, you'll just go to Start, My Computer, Local Disk C, Mach 3, scoot this out of the way. You want to drag and you want to drop this down here somewhere. Just drop it in anywhere, and it'll say and I'll show you what it'll do. Once you drag and drop it in there, do not drop it in a folder up here. Drop it down here in this general area. And what it will do is when you pull up Mach 3 Loader, instead of just these three options, it'll say G0704 right here in this profile, and then you would click on it and click OK. So that is your backup file. Don't ever lose that file. That should be able to get you going again with all your ports and pins and spindle settings and everything, which is kind of a pain to set up the first time, especially if you don't know how to do it. And so that will save you a lot of hassle. This is your main power off. We'll just go ahead and turn the box off. This cable right here is the only one I have not yet mentioned. It is the 5-volt, it's a USB power supply. It provides this this board in here with 5 volts, so it can do its optical isolation so you don't fry the board. But this has to be plugged in addition to this. It's not either this or this. It's both. Make sure they're both plugged in.